Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp. I'm Jerry Kimball, and I'm here with Jamie Saponaro, and we are excited today. We're hearing from a veteran coach, keynote speaker, trainer, consultant, and author of the book, College Recruiting Process, called Looking for a Full Ride, an Insider's Recruiting Guide. We have with us Coach Renee Lopez. Now, a few accolades. She's been named Coach of the Year. She's had over 30 all-conference players, 3 All-Americans, and she's reached conference and regional championships. She regularly appears as a guest on podcasts, blogs, magazines, and has even been featured on Sirius XM Radio, as well as ESPN Radio. We are so excited to have you with us today, Renee. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here with you guys, be able to help out our families and everyone going through the craziness of this world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But the first question I have to ask you is off topic. Someone with this much energy and accolades, what vitamins are you on? How do you do it?
Well, I think it's the idea of being active, as well as I work with kids and high schoolers and having the taking off of some of their energy, as well as I've actually cut out caffeine, and that actually helps quite a bit.
Right. It seems like you have the opposite effect, but I think we're all looking for ways to be more energetic during this time because it's easy to kind of get in a slump. Yeah. So caffeine tip is a good one for us today. Thanks, Renee. I guess we just had no idea how COVID was going to affect everything. Yeah. But if we back up a little bit before COVID and talk about what are some of the misconceptions that people have about college recruiting, because I think many times parents, it might be the first time they've gone through this process. It might be new to the family. So what are some misconceptions that people have about that?
I think so much is happening in the media, and we all watch movies like example like The Blind Side. It's a phenomenal movie. I love it. It's a great story. However, what we see in that movie is that the student athlete is talented, has a lot of talent, and so therefore then he just has all these college coaches just come banging on his door, and you see all these different appearances and all these big name coaches. Now a lot of that is Hollywood playing up something that isn't really accurate of how the process goes. I think the big misconception is that if you're talented, then your student athlete's just going to automatically be seen, and college coaches are going to automatically be knocking on your door. And that's really not how the process works for about 95% of the student athletes that are out there who go on to play in college. It's actually about marketing themselves to a college coach, letting the coach know you're interested in this school, as well as making sure that you are presenting yourself in a positive way on social media, as well as, academically. Obviously, student athletes have to be really good students, as well as, they're looking at the bigger picture and beyond the X's and O's, and the idea of what type of leader are you, as well as who are you going to be when your team hits adversity. They want to see how you deal with that. And so it's funny, in research for my book, we interviewed 65 college coaches and athletic directors across the country, across 19 different sports. And what we found was we looked at all different levels. We had everything from junior college coaches all the way up to the athletic director at the University of Florida, it's Scott Strickland. And so, you look at it, we had a wide range of things, but the funny part was I kept hearing from college coaches a couple of things. Obviously, they want talented athletes. They want high academic student athletes. Makes sense, right? But the third thing I think that was most prevalent that came out in my research was they were looking to see how student athletes respond to adversity. And so what a great segue into what we're talking about with COVID and everything like that is, they're looking to see, there's a lot of talented athletes out there who are also great students, but they're really looking for the bigger picture of what type of person are you? And I think that gets missed a lot in the college recruiting process that people don't realize. And what does it, the misconception that I'll just sit back and I'm talented, so coaches are going to come knocking on my door, as opposed to we're going to make sure that you're being proactive and marketing yourself to college coaches, but also realizing they're looking at your character and who you are as opposed to just your X's and O's and your GPA.
So I'm a former school counselor, and we talked about character education all of the time. And it's so good to hear how important that is to coaches and moving forward. So I love that. And I think it is so important about just who you are as a person.
Kids sort of think that's like the fluff part, but it really is the foundation, right? It really is the basis for who they are, and they should carry themselves that way, because that is actually how they're being seen. And I think you touched too on another important aspect of, being versatile and being resilient. We're here in COVID, and now it's hard enough. My daughter is in this right now. She's a soccer player, and she's in this, and it's hard enough to deal with the recruitment and trying to get seen. But on top of this, everything is thrown upside down. So what are some of the things that, and I also feel for the coaches too, because their world is turned upside down. Current players, their world is turned upside down. So it really has a domino effect on high school athletes as well. So what are some of those things, spots available, money maybe that's lost? What are some things now that student athletes and all of the above are trying to navigate with COVID now?
Well, I think, a lot of things have been turned upside down in terms of what the normal process looks like.
Right.
However, I keep advising, student athletes in the process is realizing that, you're still an athlete. And now it's just the idea of how do you get yourself seen? Because a lot of events and showcases and everything under the sun were canceled since March.
Yeah.
And, some of these kids are not able to go to even ID camps, with the NCAA Division I has implemented a dead period all the way in through January 1st,
right.
Which means the fact is that college coaches can't go off campus to go watch you and evaluate you. And you can't come onto the campus to do a campus visit with the coaches. You can still do a normal student campus tour, but you can't do a meeting with the coaches on campus. And you also can't be doing camps on campus for Division I. Other levels you can do that if the school's allowing and the region's allowing. However, the fact is, I keep telling student athletes, it's really important for you to realize, again, coaches are looking to see how do you bounce back from adversity. So I always tell everyone, how do you be creative? And so what does that mean? So it may mean you and your high school or club coach getting out and you're filming a session at your local high school or local park, sometimes in your backyard, whatever it may be, of just being able to show some basic skills. Maybe it's also looking to find some film from that you've had in the past. Also, it's funny asking around your teammates and realizing some parent had filmed, 3 months before all this started to happen, and they have some film and you're in that film. And so finding those ways, but also I think it's important for them to, this is a great tip. I highly recommend people realize if you don't have film, but that which teams you typically play, whether it's your high school, your club, your travel teams, things like that, is go onto YouTube and see if a game that you played against has been posted by somebody else of an opposing school or opposing team that you played against. Because a lot of people are finding that somebody else filmed from an opposing school, and you're like, oh, great, I can use this film to find some cuts. I think the idea is being creative. Because you're not being able to be seen, we've got to find other ways to do that. So, filming yourself doing workouts in the weight room or agility workouts or just some basic skills with you and a couple of friends, or playing 4v4 and a couple of friends, depending on what your area is allowing to happen. But I think being creative to be able to put yourself out there. So instead of just saying to a coach, I have no film, instead saying to them, hey, this is what I've got. We're trying to find more. We're going to do everything we can. And don't tell them no, and tell them, here's our creative way of solving the problem. I think that's what college coaches are really looking for right now. And, looking at that situation, it's also going on is, well, how many slots are still left in some of these teams, whether it's for 2021s or 2022 graduates, is, because the NCAA has allowed for athletes to return an extra year of eligibility, it has kind of changed a little bit of the dynamics of things going on. In addition to, unfortunately, we are seeing this way too often across the country because colleges are having to make major budget cuts. There are a lot of programs that are being cut, whether it's men's soccer, we're seeing a lot in men's and women's tennis, golf and swimming and diving, and we're seeing it across many different sports. Now what's happening as well is there's a lot of kids have gone to the transfer portal And so some college coaches are picking up transfers that would have normally not been an option. And so they're taking up some of those slots. And unfortunately, the 2021s are kind of in that situation where, oh gosh, well, what do I do? And so, the key is finding as much film as you can, getting letters of recommendation from coaches, high school coaches and people that are going to be references for you. But it's about being creative at this point in time, to be able to help yourself still move forward. And, I keep telling you, the one thing you can 100% control right now is your grades. Make sure that you are still sticking to it. ACT tests are canceled and SATs, and, I think it's being creative. I've heard of some people flying places or driving 4 hours in order to take an ACT or ACT. So, it's about being creative, being adaptable, which is exactly what, college coaches are looking for. They're looking for leaders in situations of adversity, and then focusing on what you can control and what you can't.
Yeah, it is. I like to hear that because, again, counselors are always trying to encourage that. And you were a counselor, Jerry, too. So
yes.
I think I like to hear that it's not all about the athletics. It's about, again, who they are, the getting through adversity, trying to be creative. My daughter's coach actually did that. He filmed some of their workouts, so that way they can put something together. But it really does come into play. And I like your idea, your point, Renee. They are in control of their grades. So besides their grades, I think there are some other things that perhaps guidance counselors can do. What else?
Well, I think it's the idea of let's make sure that we are not just putting all our eggs in the Division I basket, which I think a lot of student athletes end up doing because they're schools they've heard of, as opposed to, there may be a great fit across the country that's a Division II or an NAIA school or Division III or maybe a junior college route that may be a better option for them as a fit overall. And I think the more we can encourage kids, I always tell kids to start out with 20 to 30 schools, and people look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, no. There's going to be coaches who don't want you in terms of they just don't have the needs, your position, or they already have, multiple student athletes in that role, or maybe some seniors returning, and looking at that portion of it. And I think there's always going to be also someplace that's not a good academic fit for you. And so we've got to make sure that as, people that are around student athletes, as adults who are advising and mentoring them and encouraging them, in the bigger picture, because this is so overwhelming normally, let alone in COVID world. I think we've got to help them come up with their list of schools that make sense for them academically, location as well, because, if they're an athlete, a lot of times they want to be close to home so that way they can have mom and dad come see them play, on a regular basis, as well as, socially, what's the size of the school, but is it also in a, in a small town in suburbia, or is it a large, city type of campus? And so I think we've got to help them really discern those factors before we actually, go into the athletic side of things. And unfortunately, oftentimes what happens is people are chasing the scholarship as in athletics, and this name of this athletic program sounds great, as opposed to is the school overall that fit. And I think one of the things that we really want to do is as school counselors and even just parents is let's create a list with 20, 30 schools. Start out with 5 to 8 on every single level. So 5 to 8 Division Is, 5 to 8 NAIA schools, 5 to 8 Division IIs, Division IIIs, and junior colleges, maybe the National Christian colleges. And so the idea is that they start to really explore schools, whether, there's lots of software out there, and let's be honest, Google as well. Whether it's, let's help them really discover what those schools are that are out there that they want to study, a certain major, find the right fit and finding out that it may be out of the circle of what they actually know. And so many kids end up finding their happy place and their perfect fit, which was not even originally on their first, 10 schools that they had. And so I think we really have to help them keep their minds open to the process, as opposed to here's my list of 30 Division I schools and when I'm going to go play there. And it's like, wait a minute, those Division Is probably are done at this point. So finding, those opportunities and to really help them keep an open mind, and also making sure it's, on track in terms of their overall long-term goals.
Hey, I can see how your book would be so beneficial because so many people don't know any of this insider tips, I don't think. Am I right? Or am I just...
Yeah, a lot of I think one of the reasons I started doing this is, I was a college coach for 14 years, and I coached D1, D2, and NAIA as well. And I've also been on staff at some major universities and working with them and also in a role of at NCAA Compliance. And so what I found over the course of 14 years, and doing this book was actually really funny because it really wasn't something I had planned out to do. But I actually used to do recruiting seminars, just trying to help kids through the process and teach them. And almost every time after I do a seminar, somebody comes to me and go, "You should really write a book on this." And I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. I've never written a book in my life. I'm a coach. And so what I started to really do was I wanted to become that bridge between parents and coaches and school counselors and really help the kids really see that what college coaches are looking for, as well as, realizing what the process really is, as opposed to like what we see in the blind side. So, it's been something that we just want to help kids and help families. My heart is to help families find their right fit, not necessarily the fit that they've heard of on TV.
Right. I think it's an interesting time because I think we can possibly use this as a silver lining, because a lot of kids, like you said, 20 to 30, that's a lot. They probably had their top 5, like you said, big names, right? They really need to be open-minded. And I think because of many of the schools most of the schools now offering virtual campus visits, it really is allowing students to get a better idea. They'll be able to sign up for virtual visits that of schools they never even thought of. So I think that's actually a silver lining, and it also is cutting down on having to travel, and it's getting in their minds like, oh, okay, that looks kind of cool. And I really like how they're making connections with the kids, as opposed to this school, they didn't really seem to have that. So I think there's going to be a really nice, even comparison that students are going to make if they're doing all these virtual visits. So
I think that's absolutely correct. I think we have so many opportunities now that didn't exist even a year ago.
Yeah.
A lot of schools had virtual tours, but now they're really expanding what those are. And
Yes.
I've heard of also for some Division I's, obviously kids still are trying to do a visit, and they can do a normal student campus visit. They just can't do an athletic campus visit, even with the dead period. And so one of the things that I've heard some of the coaches doing is they give you a list of a scavenger hunt of, here's 10 things you need to do if you are just going to do a campus tour. So that way they see the other parts of it. So, I think people are adapting not only virtually, but also, okay, how can we make this happen? Let's say you're just doing you do a walking tour on your own at the school. Now here's the things you need to go see. And I think coaches are really trying to make those adaptations, and they're having team meetings. And, I've heard of one team that's brings their team on, and each one of their team members brings a wild and crazy hat. And so now the recruits kind of get to see the team chemistry, as opposed to maybe you wouldn't have seen all of that, if you just did that practice for a day. But I think they're trying to be creative and trying to figure out ways to really get recruits engaged, virtually, but also if they are on campus and ways to, again, we're being creative as much as we can to find the right fit for families and, really help them, find what makes the most sense overall.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something you mentioned in the book, something that, because I also follow your Facebook group, which is fantastic, and then some of your blogs. So you mentioned the broken leg test. What do you mean by that?
Well, I always tell a story of a student athlete that I had who was someone we started looking at when she was a sophomore in high school. And we walked through the process with her, we saw her when she was a sophomore, started to kind of engage her. She came to our camps when she was a junior, and going to her senior year, she committed, I believe, like spring of her junior year. And, had started really, really engaging with us. And we were really excited about her. And I always said to students, athletes, I want you to think that I want to make sure this is a fit for you in 4 areas: academically, socially, financially, and then athletically. And I say those 4 areas are really key when you make a decision of a college.
And in that order?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So making sure that it's a good fit in terms of size and things like that. And finances do play a role. We know that as well. And too often we say, well, we want to play on this team. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Can you afford to go to this school? Because most kids are not on a full ride. Now, we'd love to all be on a full ride, but most kids are not in terms of the scholarship percentages that are out there, especially in equivalency sports versus head count sports. And so it's really important to kind of do that. So going back to this story with this young lady, she was a really good student, 4.0, fantastic ACT scores. And, she came into us and she came in and she busted her butt all summer long, and she was fit as can be, came in and beat out a bunch of my upperclassmen in her first fitness test on the first day of preseason. It was great. She was flying high. All the upperclassmen are giving her high fives, but also looking over her shoulder going, uh-oh, she's really good. We get into our, later that day, we do a session where we literally just roll the balls out. We had a ton of freshmen that year. Just say, let's just roll the balls out. Let's just play. Let's get to know each other as players. We just did a fitness in the morning. And about 5-10 minutes into the first of her first official practice with the ball, she gets tripped up. Shoelaces get caught up with someone else, gets tripped up, lands on her shoulder and her back, and her neck, really, really weird. Long story short, we'll fast forward through it. Really bad situation. Ended up to the point where she could no longer play. She could no longer run. Thank God she could actually come back to walking. That was a little scary during that point in time. But here she was as a freshman, and now her entire career was over. And so I always tell kids, we have to make sure that we're choosing the school, not just because of athletics. And the funny part was, after we'd gone through the process, and I said to her, I said, did you, how are you doing with this whole process of, you probably aren't going to play, you're a manager, she's a fantastic videographer, statistician, she helped us every other way, recruits, things like that. I said, you're going to be involved in our program, but you're not going to play. I said, how is that going to look for you? And she goes, I chose this school not because of soccer. And I was like, awesome. And she's like, she's graduated now from that school and done great things. And it's, and she's going on to be successful in her career. But I think it's important that we really think about those things, is what if something happens, is this still the right school for you? Or are you going to end up transferring? And I think looking at that situation, and so many kids, again, when programs got dropped, so many kids decided to transfer as opposed to, it was already the right fit for them. They're just going to stay at that school. And I know that's a difficult situation for kids, but I always encourage kids to really think that story through and go, okay, if I tear my ACL or I break my leg or something happens, I can't keep playing. Is this still the right fit for you? And I think too often we get caught up in the athletic side of things, and we have to really help these kids really see the difference and go, here's what really makes sense. We have to make sure that we're doing all the right things to help them academically and socially and financially before we even the athletic side of it.
Yeah, it's so important.
It really is. Wow, Renee, I am just blown away at all of the information that you've given us, because I was not an athlete and my kids weren't. So I really didn't know all this happened behind the scenes. I love hearing about the creativity, though, that's happening with coaches and counselors and parents. And, there's this group of kids now, I think, wondering, where are we going to go? What do you suggest? I know you said work on your grades, but so that they don't give up. Any words of wisdom to them?
Yeah, what are your top 5 recommendations?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I think first and foremost is figure out what you are going to need in order to get into a school, in terms of, are they making you have test scores or are they not? I think that's really, really key right now. And figuring out, where does that mean? Are they optional? Are they still strongly recommended? Obviously the NCAA and the NAIA both have waived for the 2021 class to not have to have them for eligibility standpoint if they meet other criteria. However, you need to still find out if the school needs it. I think that's the really, really key thing. And then if that's the case, figure out a way to get an ACT, SAT, whatever it may be, driving, flying, figure out how to get to one, because I know they keep getting canceled. I think that's really, really important, because if that is necessary, then there's no farther that a coach can go if you don't have that. And so we need to make sure of that. Again, not all schools are making that mandatory at this point. So figuring that out, obviously your grades, getting your transcripts into those coaches as soon as possible. And again, finding those creative ways of showing video. A lot of non-Division I schools, Division II, all the way down junior colleges, are having camps, ID camps on their campuses. Not all. There's parts of the country that are not doing this. California is one of those, that's definitely having a lot of issues in terms of they're not opening back up. But you will find that there are a lot of ID camps that are going on right now that a lot of kids can be attending. and just go to a camp. If you, again, before you even do that, make sure that you've done a virtual tour. And so the campus looks like something you're interested in. Talk with an admissions staff. See if you can get on the phone with a coach or get a Zoom session with a coach, and make sure that the coach isn't finished with their 2021 class. Don't go to a camp that they already are finished with their 2021s if you're a 2021. Now, 2022s, I think you guys can definitely be engaged in this process too as well. If there are camps, I highly recommend you go to those. So, I think first and foremost, see about the test scores. Second, obviously, let's make sure we're getting our academics, keeping on track and get those transcripts to coaches. Also making sure that you're getting those videos if you have them, and looking at, virtual tours, and then, getting to campus if you can, if that's a possibility. And then, if you can as well, do an ID camp. I think those 5 things right now is really, really key. I think there's still spots out there. And then the biggest one, and I'll put a big star bonus on number 6, I would say, you asked for 5, but this is probably the most important, is keep your mind open to different levels of playing. Whether you go to a junior college and play for a year and then look to transfer to a 4-year, or maybe you play for 2 years. But I think keep your options open. Oftentimes people think, well, all the money's in Division I. And the reality is, in a lot of equivalency sports especially, there's a lot of money in NAIA, Division II, and junior colleges for athletics. And then the other side of it is a lot of people don't realize how generous a lot of Division IIIs are in terms of their overall merit scholarships that are available academically, and then also what it looks like in filing their FAFSA and financial aid. So big number 6, big bonus stars, I would say, is make sure that you're keeping your options open, because you're going to find a lot more options at this point, especially for 2021s, at the junior college level, NAIAs, Division IIs, Division IIIs.
Yeah.
I'm going to add in a number 7. I think they need to get your book.
Well, that'd be great.
Where can they get your book?
Pick up my book at lookingforafullride.com, and we are, you also can find on my website at rlopezcoaching.com. You can find over 40 blogs on the college recruiting process. And one of the key things, like Jamie mentioned, was that we do have a very, very large Facebook group that I run as well. And it is something that we try to help families. We have tons of experts in there, and this is my team of experts. We are constantly trying to help kids everywhere from 2025s all the way up to 2021s. And it's only for parents and coaches and school counselors. It's not for student athletes on purpose, because we want to be able to kind of have a pretty blunt conversation in there and really be able to provide as many resources as possible too. So, however, if you are really new to this process and not sure, the best step you can take is picking up Looking for a Full Ride. You can lookingforafullride.com, and then you can also check out some of the other information that we have out there. And always, you're welcome to reach out to me if you want some individual consulting too. And you can email me at info@lookingforafullride.com.
Yeah, I mean,
What you're doing is so important, so helpful to kids. I just love the work you're doing. It's great.
It's really exciting. And beyond that, I just find it so amazing that you're so generous with your advice. Your blogs, of course, the book is amazing. It is our go-to. What should I put in this email? Go get the book. How should I? Go get the book. I mean, it's not just, don't have to just sit down and read the whole thing. You go to the chapter you need and you pull out what you need. It's really an amazing handbook. But also what I find so inspiring is that that Facebook group, you answer questions within, and that goes back to Jerry's question, what vitamins are you using? Because you answer those questions within 5-10 minutes. I mean, and you're constant it's a conversation. You're not just throwing an answer up there. It's so impressive. And it really is comforting to know that, because it's such a hard thing to navigate. It's so comforting to know that my husband was just asking, like, what do we do? Do we go to these showcases? D1s aren't going to be there. I don't know. Go to the Facebook group and search for D1, search for dead period. It's all right there. See what you think. It's really fantastic. So you're representing all parents. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it makes me smile whenever we see one of those kids find the perfect fit, and it's not a school that somebody's heard of. And I love that, because they realized they went through the process and really tried to find that academic fit, the social fit, the financial fit, and then the athletic fit, and really take that broken leg test. We just want to help families really see the key. the keys that are going to help their child be happy, and as opposed to just thinking, oh, I got a full ride at this athletic school. Like, okay, great, but where is the school? Is it a good fit for you overall? And so, it just makes my heart smile, and that we are going to be able to, and I always tell everyone, I don't ask for anything in return. The only thing I say is tell somebody else so we can help somebody else. And I have this crazy goal, and you can appreciate this. I'm sure, Jamie, you'll see it when I talk about it as well. As my book starts to turn 1 year old tomorrow, really exciting about it is that we just want to reach as many athletes and families as we can. And my goal, it's a crazy goal in the midst of COVID, is to be able to impact and try to help 1 million people in the course of 2 years. And the idea is it. So, we are growing, and somebody knows somebody else who knows somebody else, and doing podcasts and radio and our blogs. They're now being read, and I've had to ship books to over to seas to I think 8 different countries now, as well as we've been in Canada and all throughout the U.S. I think I'm at 45 or 46 states that we've shipped to in the United States, and we just want to be able to impact as many families as we can, so they know the process. They don't hire on recruiting services and spend thousands of dollars, when we can just help them through the process if you take the right steps. So, we've been overwhelmed a little bit in terms of COVID, and so I'm not quite as quickly to respond to questions, but we're getting there, because we just want to help as many kids as we can. But I always tell everyone, look at the search bar. You're going to find some of the answers there too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. Well, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and we're excited to share this with families to get more insight and all of your fantastic advice. So thank you again
so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys.
Thank you. It was so fun. Thank you, Renee.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.